That morning felt strange from the start. Aisha, a 22-year-old university student in Nairobi, noticed her family whispering and acting weird. Her mother barely spoke, and her brother Kevin kept staring at her with a look she couldn't quite read. She laughed it off, thinking maybe she was imagining things. But as soon as she reached campus, something felt even more off. People stopped talking when she walked by. Some pointed, others just stared. Her best friend, Nandi, rushed to her side and whispered, "Aisha, what's in your bag?" Aisha froze. She hadn't opened it since she left home. Her heart started racing, her hands trembling as she slowly placed it on the table. What could possibly be inside? Before she could check, the classroom door opened, and the principal walked in with 2 police officers. Everyone gasped. "Miss Aisha, please open your bag," one of them said. Confused and terrified, she unzipped it, and out fell a small velvet pouch filled with gold jewelry. The entire class went silent. Aisha's eyes widened in shock. She had never seen those items before. The police said they matched the jewelry stolen from a charity event the night before. Her mind spun. Whispers filled the room, phones came out, and within minutes, her name was trending online. Aisha felt her world crumble, but deep inside, one thought kept echoing, "Someone did this to me." And she already knew who it was. The class was quiet when the door suddenly opened. Everyone turned to see the principal walk in, followed by 2 police officers. The sight made Aisha's stomach twist. The principal's face looked serious as he said, "Aisha, please stand up and bring your bag." A wave of whispers spread through the room. Aisha's hands went cold. She didn't understand what was happening. Slowly, she picked up her bag and walked to the front. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. One officer nodded and said, "Please open your bag." Her fingers shook as she unzipped it. Time seemed to stop. Then something small and shiny fell onto the floor, a soft velvet pouch. It landed with a dull thud that felt louder than anything she'd ever heard. The officer bent down, opened the pouch, and revealed gold jewelry, necklaces, earrings, and rings that sparkled under the fluorescent light. The entire class gasped. Someone muttered, "That's from the charity event." Another student whispered, "Oh my God, she stole it." Aisha froze. She couldn't even speak. The officer turned to the principal and said quietly, "These match the missing items from last night's theft." Aisha felt her knees weaken. She shook her head, trying to form words, but nothing came out. "I didn't, this isn't mine," she finally managed to whisper. But nobody seemed to believe her. The other students stepped back as if she were dangerous. Some took out their phones, recording the scene, whispering and sharing her name online. Within hours, her face and the story spread across social media, "University girl caught with stolen jewelry." People she didn't even know called her names. Her friends avoided her. Even her professors looked disappointed. Aisha sat in the police station later that day, staring at the pouch on the table. She kept replaying everything in her mind, how it got there, who could have done it, why this was happening to her. Then it hit her like a flash. She remembered the strange looks from her brother that morning. How quiet he was. How he insisted on carrying her bag to the table before breakfast. Kevin. Her own brother. It made perfect, painful sense. Kevin had been struggling with money for months, always hiding his phone, always nervous. And he'd been jealous of her since she got her scholarship. Tears filled Aisha's eyes, but behind the pain, something stronger began to grow, determination. She whispered to herself, "I'll prove it. I'll show them the truth." The police asked more questions, but she said little. She wanted to be smart about it. She knew Kevin thought she'd break down and stay silent, but he didn't know her heart. He didn't know how far she'd go to clear her name. That night, as she sat alone, the world thought she was guilty, but deep inside, Aisha began to plan her comeback. Kevin had always lived in Aisha's shadow. Growing up, everyone called her the smart one, the hope of the family. She won awards, earned a scholarship, and even helped their mother pay bills with her internship money. Kevin loved his sister once, but slowly that love turned into jealousy. Every time their relatives praised Aisha, he felt smaller. Every time their mother compared him to her, he felt angrier. On the outside, he smiled and acted proud. But inside, he was boiling with envy. What no one knew was that Kevin was sinking deeper and deeper into gambling. He spent nights at secret betting shops, losing money he didn't have. The debts grew so bad that loan sharks began calling the house. He was desperate, scared, and ashamed. Then one night, as he watched news about the stolen jewelry from a charity event, a dark idea came to him. The next morning, he walked into Aisha's room while she was in the shower. Her bag was on the chair, open, filled with books. He looked around nervously, then pulled out a small velvet pouch from his jacket. Inside were the stolen gold pieces, given to him by a friend who owed him a favor. His plan was cruel but clear: he'd hide the jewelry in Aisha's bag, act shocked when she got caught, and become the poor brother trying to keep the family together while his perfect sister fell from grace. He imagined their relatives calling to comfort him, sending him money, offering help. He even rehearsed what he'd say to reporters if the story spread. In his mind, this was his chance to finally get attention, to be the one everyone cared about. As he zipped Aisha's bag, he smiled to himself, believing he had outsmarted everyone. He didn't even flinch when she walked into the kitchen that morning, confused by his sudden kindness. He played the part perfectly, helping her carry the bag, pretending to be the loving brother again. But Kevin forgot one thing: Aisha wasn't just smart, she was strong. When the plan worked and the news broke, Kevin felt powerful for the first time. He watched Aisha's world collapse, watched their mother cry and neighbors gossip. Yet, instead of satisfaction, a strange fear began to grow in him. Every time he looked at Aisha's calm face, it unsettled him. She wasn't yelling or begging. She was quiet. Too quiet. What Kevin didn't know was that Aisha was already putting the pieces together. While he celebrated his fake victory, she started tracing clues. Kevin thought he had destroyed her, but he had only awakened her strength. He had turned his sister into someone he couldn't control, a girl ready to fight back. And soon, the same trap he built for her would close in on him. After being suspended from school, Aisha locked herself in her small room and stayed silent for days. The neighbors whispered about her. Her mother barely spoke to her. Online, people called her names she could hardly bear to read. Everyone thought she had broken down. Even Kevin walked around the house pretending to be sad, telling relatives that his poor sister had made a terrible mistake. But behind Aisha's quiet eyes, something powerful was growing. She wasn't broken, she was planning. Each night, she sat on her bed, staring at the velvet pouch that had ruined her life. She replayed every detail in her mind, every strange look from Kevin, every suspicious move. Then one evening, her best friend Nandi came over. "Don't cry," Nandi said softly, holding her hand. "Record everything." Those words stuck with her. Aisha wiped her tears and nodded. From that night, she turned her pain into a mission. She began by visiting the pawn shop where the jewelry was first reported. Pretending to be curious, she asked the shopkeeper if anyone had recently sold gold pieces like those in her case. The man hesitated but finally said yes, and showed her the receipt. Her heart skipped when she saw the name on the transaction. It wasn't Kevin's, but someone she recognized. It was Kevin's close friend, Brian. That was the first clue. Aisha quickly took a picture of the receipt when the shopkeeper wasn't looking. She sent it to Nandi with one word: "Got it." Over the next few days, Aisha and Nandi dug deeper. They tracked Brian's online activity, searched through public pages, and found that the jewelry had been transferred to another buyer. When Aisha checked the bank trail linked to the sale, her stomach turned. The money had gone straight into Kevin's account. She couldn't believe it, but at the same time, she could. Everything finally made sense. The brother she trusted had destroyed her to save himself. But Aisha didn't rush. She didn't shout or confront him. She waited. She knew Kevin was careful, and if she made one mistake, he'd find a way to twist it again. So she collected everything, screenshots of messages between Kevin and Brian, phone call logs, even a voice note where Brian mentioned the gold plan. Each night, she labeled and saved the files neatly in a folder she called proof. Sometimes she cried, but she never stopped. "He wants me to look weak," she told Nandi. "Let him think that. The louder he laughs now, the harder he'll fall later." When her folder was full and every piece of evidence lined up perfectly, Aisha sat back and smiled for the first time in weeks. She knew what she had to do next. She wasn't going to face Kevin in private. This wasn't going to be a quiet confrontation. It was going to be public, so everyone who had believed his lies would finally see the truth. A week later, Aisha's mother decided to hold a big family dinner. She said it was time to talk about Aisha's mistake. The whole house smelled of food, but there was no warmth in the air. Everyone came dressed nicely, but their faces were tense. Aisha sat quietly in a corner, wearing a simple dress and keeping her eyes down. Her relatives whispered to each other, shaking their heads, saying things like, "Such a smart girl, how could she do this?" and "What a shame to the family." Kevin walked around smiling, pretending to be supportive. He patted Aisha's shoulder and said things like, "Don't worry, sis, we all make mistakes." His fake concern made her blood boil, but she stayed calm. She wasn't there to argue, she was there to end it. Dinner started with forced smiles and fake laughter. But as soon as everyone finished eating, Aisha's mother cleared her throat. "We need to talk about the missing gold," she said, her voice sharp. The room went silent. All eyes turned to Aisha. Her mother sighed deeply, her tone heavy with disappointment. "You've brought shame to this family, Aisha. The school, the neighbors, everyone is talking. Why couldn't you just tell us the truth?" Aisha didn't respond. She looked across the table at Kevin, who sat there pretending to look sad, shaking his head like a victim of his sister's failure. "It's okay, Mama," he said softly, "I forgive her." The words made a few relatives nod in approval. "Such a kind brother," one aunt whispered. Kevin's lips curved into a proud little smirk. Then Aisha slowly stood up. "Actually," she said quietly, "I think everyone deserves to hear the real story." Her mother frowned. "Aisha, not now," but Aisha was already reaching for her phone. She connected it to the Bluetooth speaker on the shelf. A faint beep sounded, and for a few seconds, the room was silent. Then a familiar voice filled the air. Kevin's voice. Loud and clear. "She'll never see it coming," he said, laughing. "One fake pouch, and she's done. Everyone will finally stop praising her for once." The room froze. Forks dropped. Someone gasped. Kevin's face turned pale. "Wait, what is that?" he shouted, trying to stand up, but it was too late. The recording continued, playing his full conversation with Brian. Every word, every laugh, every cruel sentence echoed through the house. "I'll frame her, they'll pity me, and I'll get my share," his voice said. Aisha stood there silently, watching everyone's faces change. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. Her uncles looked at Kevin in disbelief. The same relatives who had been whispering about Aisha were now whispering about him. Kevin stammered, "That's not me. Someone edited that." But Aisha calmly opened another file, screenshots, receipts, and voice messages, all showing his name. The room buzzed with shock. For the first time, Kevin had nothing to say. Aisha didn't shout or cry. She just looked at him and said softly, "Now everyone knows the truth." When the recording stopped, the room went dead silent. No one moved. You could hear the ceiling fan spinning and someone's spoon clattering against a plate. Kevin's face had gone pale. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Everyone stared at him, his mother, uncles, aunts, cousins, all waiting for an explanation. Finally, his mother whispered, "Kevin, you framed your own sister." Her voice cracked in disbelief. The question hung in the air like thunder. Kevin stood up suddenly, sweating. "No, no, that's not true," he stammered. "Someone's trying to make me look bad. This is fake." But no one was convinced. Aisha, still calm, picked up her phone and started showing the evidence one by one. First came the screenshots of messages between Kevin and Brian discussing the plan. Then the bank transfers, money that Brian sent directly to Kevin after pawning the stolen gold. And finally, the pawnshop log with Kevin's friend's name clearly written on it. Every piece fit perfectly, like a puzzle revealing the truth. The elders murmured among themselves, shaking their heads in shock. "So it was you all along," one uncle said. "You betrayed your own blood for money." Another relative muttered, "How could you do that to your sister?" Kevin looked around helplessly, searching for anyone who might defend him, but no one would even meet his eyes. His mother began to cry quietly, covering her face with her hands. The same woman who had once called Aisha a disgrace now looked heartbroken over her son's cruelty. Outside, the noise had drawn neighbors to the gate. Some peeked through the windows, others stood in the yard, whispering. Then someone started recording on their phone. Kevin noticed the camera lights flashing through the window, and panic filled his face. "Stop recording," he shouted, rushing toward the window, but it was too late. The story was already spreading faster than he could stop it. People had seen enough to know what was happening. Within minutes, clips of Kevin's confession and Aisha's calm revenge began circulating online. The same internet that had once mocked her now stood by her side. Comments poured in, people calling her brave, smart, and strong. Strangers praised her for exposing the truth with proof, not anger. Meanwhile, Kevin's reputation shattered in real time. His friends stopped replying to his messages. His gambling partners distanced themselves. Relatives who once gave him money now refused to answer his calls. Aisha stood quietly as chaos filled the room. She didn't gloat or scream. She simply looked at her brother and said, "You tried to destroy me, but you destroyed yourself instead." Kevin slumped into a chair, covering his face, realizing that the world now saw him for who he really was. That night, for the first time in weeks, Aisha felt light. The weight she had been carrying finally lifted. Everyone knew the truth, and she didn't have to say another word. The next morning, the neighborhood was buzzing. Everyone had seen the video from the family dinner. Kevin's face and voice were everywhere, his confession, his lies, and Aisha's calm exposure. By noon, 2 police officers arrived at their gate. The sound of their car stopping outside made everyone rush to the window. Kevin stepped out of his room, eyes red from crying all night. His mother stood in the corner, silent, while Aisha watched quietly from the living room. One of the officers said, "Kevin Mwangi, you are needed for questioning regarding the charity theft." Kevin tried to argue, but his words fell apart. The officers took him by the arm and led him away. The whole street watched as he got into the police car, his head down in shame. But for Aisha, that wasn't the end. She could have stopped there and moved on, but she wanted to tell her story her way. That night, she sat at her desk, opened her phone camera, and pressed record. She spoke softly but firmly, explaining everything, from the morning her family acted strange, to the moment the police opened her bag, to the pain of realizing her own brother had framed her. She didn't cry. She just told the truth. She showed parts of the evidence, shared the audio recording, and ended the video with one powerful line, "When someone tries to bury you, remember, you are the seed." She uploaded the video online, not expecting much. But within hours, it exploded. People started sharing it on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Hashtags like hashtag Justice for Aisha and hashtag Sister vs Brother began trending. News pages picked up the story with headlines like, "Girl framed by her own brother outsmarts him with genius evidence." Everyone was talking about her. Some said she was brave, others said she was the definition of strength. People from all over Africa sent her messages of support. Many shared their own experiences of betrayal, saying her courage gave them hope. A popular TV host invited her for an interview, calling her the girl who turned pain into power. The comments flooded with admiration. "Aisha, you're an inspiration. You prove that truth always wins. Your calm revenge was pure genius." Her once broken reputation was now shining brighter than ever. Days later, an NGO that supported victims of family abuse and betrayal reached out to her. They offered her a special scholarship to continue her education and even asked her to speak at their youth event about resilience. Aisha couldn't believe it. The same story that once destroyed her life had now opened doors she never imagined. When she looked back at everything, she felt no hatred toward Kevin, just a quiet strength. She had fought back with truth, not anger. Her pain had become her power. And as the world watched her rise, Aisha realized she hadn't just cleared her name, she had become a symbol of hope for thousands who'd been wronged and silenced before. Months passed, and life slowly began to feel normal again. Aisha was back at school, more confident than ever. Her story had inspired thousands, and people often stopped her on campus just to say how proud they were of her. But one afternoon, as she walked home from class, she saw someone standing near the gate of their house. It was Kevin. He had been released on bail. His face looked tired and empty, his eyes filled with guilt. When he saw her, he forced a weak smile and said softly, "Aisha, can we talk? I just want to make peace." Aisha looked at him for a long moment. There was no anger in her eyes, only calm. Without saying a word, she reached into her bag and pulled out an old, faded backpack, the same one he had once used to frame her. She handed it to him. "You left this behind," she said quietly. Kevin looked confused, then slowly unzipped it. Inside were several papers, printed copies of his confession, the police report, and screenshots of his messages with Brian. On top of them was a single folded note. He opened it and read the words that made his hands shake. "Next time you try to bury me, remember, I'm the seed." Kevin's lips trembled. He looked up, but Aisha was already turning away. She didn't yell, didn't cry, she just walked off, her head high and her step steady. For the first time in months, she smiled, not out of revenge, but from peace. She had finally closed the chapter that once broke her. Behind her, Kevin stood frozen, realizing that the sister he tried to destroy had grown stronger than ever, and that his own bag now carried the weight of his downfall.